pod.gr.
You're listening to the Net Zero Podcast, a podcast that focuses not only on the critical issue of climate change, but also on the corporate response to deal with this defining crisis of our time. In the first episode, a discussion between Chairman and CEO of Mytilineos, Evangelos Mytilineos, and Bloomberg Head of Europe, Middle East and Africa, Dana Perkins.
I am totally convinced that there is no dilemma between climate-friendly policies and legitimate profits in the business.
The discussion centered on Mytilineos' new targets and commitments for a 30% reduction of Mytilineos emissions by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050.
We want this to be part of the DNA of the group. In this very serious issue, as climate change and entrepreneurial behavior, we have worked with top-of-the-world experts to set targets that are quantifiable. It's important. We're a business and we understand what is quantified, and I insist on accountability.
Here follows the rest of the discussion as it took place at the first virtual summit powered by Mytilineos, focusing on the environmental, social and governance criteria that form the ESG indicators for sustainable development.
Mrs. Perkins, welcome to our ESG Summit. It's very nice to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, and I think we have some really interesting ground to cover with the announcements that you guys have made, so I really look forward to participating in this.
Thank you. Me too.
So your business committed to some ambitious ESG targets, and this really comes at a time when many companies and actually countries across the world are making commitments towards a net zero and low carbon future. And this is generating a lot of media buzz. But what I want to know from you is, is this just talk, or do you think that these commitments are actually going to change the way that business operates? And what mechanisms do you think need to be put in place in order to ensure that companies actually meet these targets?
Good question. Thank you very much. But I wonder, do we need policing? Commitments are only partially legal, so I don't think we need policing. These are ethical commitments towards the society, towards the stakeholders, towards the shareholders. If you do not comply with these commitments, shareholders will punish you anyway. But realistically looking at it, the global investment community is only slowly upgrading the ESG performance of a company in its investment decisions. But you're right. We need to ensure the right conditions are there in order to push ahead with the climate action and ambition while safeguarding or even boosting the global competitiveness of industry. We must be bold in designing new, innovative tools supporting the green transitions of the European economy, including looking directly at the consumption side, especially when it comes to the energy-intensive industries. We must not forget that sustainability is a broad concept where climate change has a prominent place, but also jobs, industrial growth, and affordability also need to be safeguarded, I think.
So, you mentioned that the finance community is really going to put a good amount of pressure on business. So we don't need enforcement mechanisms coming from policymakers. But how about pressure from within the industry itself? So do you see Mytilineos as being a first mover? And do you think that there will be really a domino effect of other companies making commitments in your industry?
I will comment on two things for our industry and for our country. In Greece, we have been through a very serious debt crisis in the last 10 years, and the major concern of the companies has been to stay afloat. Things are getting better now, and I think companies will start looking more at ESG. Now, a lot of companies are not exactly aware of ESG, so there will have to be an education also about the goals of ESG and the way going forward. As regards our industry in the aluminum business, which is one major division of our company, there is a major trend globally to turn the production of alumina, which is very energy intensive, to turn it green. And already there have been contracts between producers and consumers for green aluminum. Green aluminum is aluminum that has been produced from green energy. So there are already steps in this direction.
Well, so then you talk about how it feels in many respects that up until this point, looking at ESG felt a bit like a luxury when so many businesses were fighting for survival. How do you think that, a company is looking at profit always? That's every company. But how about purpose as a business? And do you think that purpose and profit can be aligned? And more importantly, do you think this has changed, your announcement recently has changed some of the purpose of Mytilineos as a business?
I am totally convinced that there is no dilemma between climate-friendly policies and legitimate profit in the business. I'm sure that if we use innovative ideas, if you use new technologies, if you use the minds of the people that you employ, then you can have excellent results, you can have better quality products at lower cost, therefore it does not hurt your profitability. At the same time, you do good things for the climate and for our planet. That does not apply, I'm afraid, to all sectors of the industry. There are some sectors that we all know very well that will have to suffer, but this is a change. There are other opportunities for these industries which are going to suffer most. There are other similar opportunities close to the existing model that they follow that can lead the way for them. So the answer is, there is no dilemma between good climate policies and profitability. You can do both.
And you think that this will make your company stronger and more competitive going forward, am I right?
I spoke to our people at the beginning of this summit in 31 countries around the world, in 5 continents. And I told them that we are going to fight this challenge and we are going to emerge stronger from the crisis of the planet, the climatic crisis. We are going to survive and survive in a much stronger mode. This is a commitment I made to our people, and I think they are all ready to go for it.
Okay. Well, so of the targets that you've set, and the announcement comes with, a real direction for the business. So would you be so kind as to share some of the specifics of what your company will be doing, in particular on an environmental front?
Our general goal and target is to comply with the Paris climate decisions and subsequent decisions that have been made. I think that by 2030, we will have reduced our emissions by more than 70%. And by 2050, we will be net zero. It's the commitments that we have made, and we have plans that we are going to follow for this to happen. I repeat that we have to be accountable. We have made fair commitments to our shareholders that every year in an annual general meeting, we will present the progress that has been made. And we will be held accountable by them. There's no doubt about it. This is going to happen. The second thing is what we do with our 4 different divisions. Each division has a different footprint. They're not all the same. The footprint of our division for renewables and development is very small. So it will be easy to minimize or nullify in 5 years, for example. We have the Sustainable and Engineering Solutions division, which is going to take maybe the same time, like 5 years. But on the other hand, we have power and gas, which will take more time, will take probably 15 years. And then we have, of course, metallurgy with aluminum production. Aluminum is very energy intensive, but has done so much progress already. We have replaced diesel fuel oil with gas. We have replaced lignite power with gas power. And our plan is by 2030, we will only produce green aluminum.
Well, so you talked about kind of some of the journey that businesses have gone on in order to get to a place where they are ready to talk about ESG. And then also you referenced the Paris Climate Agreement, which clearly outlines that time is of the essence and that we need to make some bold actions in the near term in order to reach that net zero, 2050 target that you were just talking about. So I want to know why, with all of that in the backdrop still, why was now the right time for Mytilineos when there still probably was time for you to drag your feet on it a little bit if you didn't want to, a lot of people in the industry aren't doing anything yet.
I'm afraid this is very true, but we think this is the right time to announce. But this has been our business practice for years. We have been preparing ourselves for some years before making specific announcements. All these years we have invested in CapEx, in concept change to improve our position. As I said, in metallurgy, we brought down emissions already by 60% in the last 10 years. But why go public now? That's a question very much to the point. For one, we are already agreed in our organization on the firm commitments, on what exactly we will have to make to achieve our goals. That was not easy. It's a big organization with conflicting interests and so on. So we have to make an agreement inside the organization. And second, is that now we feel more and more the heat of the society, which, is going through a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. And it demands from business, from politics, from society leaders to have a better future. And that better future implies a better climate, a better planet. So the heat is on us. We have to respond. This is one of the reasons why we do it now.
And you referenced a little bit earlier Greece specifically. Do you think that this is also the right time for a lot of Greek companies, because we're seeing a lot of movement actually across Europe, but Greek companies specifically, to be looking at this more closely?
As I said before, it is the right time because pandemic has turned everything upside down. Let's be fair and frank about it. Businesses that had ESG on their plans, again, they were hit very badly by the pandemic. But ESG is on the cards. Greek companies get more involved. The Greek government is pushing, the new government that we've had in the last year and a half is pushing hard on this end, on electric vehicles, on the abolition of lignite generation and other moves, quite a few of them. So I think, yes, the Greek business community will now slowly go strong on the ESG thing.
Thank you. Now, when we're talking about, I'm going to pivot a little because I know that we only have so much time. Let's talk about renewable energy investments. So you announced that you're going to increase investments in renewables. That presumably has a strong connection to the metallurgy side of the business as well, given the energy intensity of the aluminum or aluminium, depending upon how you want to say it. Mm-hmm. Is that core to your strategy? And actually, how do you think, I can see the benefit from a climate change standpoint, but how is that going to benefit your shareholders?
Indeed, we announced the acquisition of quite a substantial portfolio of solar and storage projects. Within 3 years, this is going to bring an equilibrium in the production of energy from our group. We will have 2,000 megawatts of gas capacity and 2,000 in renewable capacity. I think it's a matter of 10 to 15 years before gas would totally be replaced by renewable. That's fact. The second thing is the production of electricity by the renewable especially the solar and storage facilities, is actually cheaper than electricity produced from gas. So this is a win-win situation. We invest, which is in renewables, which is good for the climate, and at the same time, we invest in lowering our costs. This is going to be our main goal all the way through this exercise.
Well, and my last question has to do with how you interact with the rest of the world in reporting this. So there's a lot of terminology out there, a lot of different acronyms as the world is looking to clean up. And there are a lot of frameworks for reporting. Are there any frameworks that you would endorse or plan to use? And how do you intend to go about sharing information with the rest of the world?
We want this new move, this ESG thing, to be part of the DNA of the group. It's a new thing. We've been on it for a few years, but there have been decades before that where the DNA was not there. But it's getting on now. In this very serious issue, as climate change and entrepreneurial behavior, we have worked with top-of-the-world experts to set targets that are quantifiable. It's important. We're a business and we understand what is quantified, and I insist on accountability. And yes, we cooperate with the best of the world to bring this to fruition. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today about these targets that you've put forward, and as you were saying, this DNA change that is fundamentally changing your business for the better and to hopefully make you much more competitive and lead you to a bright future. So thank you very much. Mr. Perkins, thank you very much.
This was the Net Zero podcast by Mytilineos, the first Greek company that sets clear targets and is committed to minimizing its carbon footprint. I am your hostess, Eratos Zourufidou. Producer, Yula Rapti. Sound editing, Giorgos Vavanos. Follow us and download all episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also stream this and future episodes on www.mytilineos.gr.
Pod.gr. Sounds good.